Small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy.
Welcome to the BackBone Small Business Podcast, where we share the stories of small business owners and the grit and determination it takes to run a small business. In the wake of COVID-19, the vast majority of small businesses have been affected in one way or another, and we've been chatting with these people to learn what it is they're doing to keep afloat and stay alive as small businesses. Today, I have the good fortune of chatting with the mayor of the capital city of British Columbia, Mayor Lisa Helps of Victoria, BC. Welcome and thank you for joining me on the BackBone.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. It's a great series and all important at this time when small businesses are struggling so much.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And today it's very timely with the Prime Minister coming out and releasing many different updated measures. And as small business owners, we knew that 10% of your payroll wasn't really going to do much, but they've come out and, on the bigger picture, released a bunch of great programs that should be able to help us out, providing we qualify, of course. But I was wondering, as the mayor of the municipality, what are some of the initiatives you're looking at through City Council to help out small businesses?
Well, it's a very interesting question. Compared to the provincial and federal governments, local governments have very little either fiscal power or authority to take action. And so, that's notwithstanding that, there are some things that we're looking to do. But one of the things, and I don't know where this came from historically, but one of the things in the community charter, which is the legislation governing local governments in British Columbia, there are lines in there that explicitly prohibit us from helping business, from supporting one business or another. And again, there probably, comes from abuses of the past or something. So, for example, we have many commercial tenants in city-owned buildings, and while we just love to waive their rent, we actually don't have the capacity legally to do that. So for our own tenants in commercial properties that are owned by the city, what we're looking at is rent deferrals, anything we can do creatively to help our own tenants, our own small business tenants get through this time. So that's one measure for our own commercial tenants. I understand that every dollar helps at this point in time. So some of the things we've asked our staff, council's asked our staff to look at every fiscal, legislative, and legal tool we have to help small businesses. And some things are small. We have a bylaw that imposes a 5% penalty on late utility bills. We're looking to staff to bring forward changes so we can waive that. Now, that's not the same thing as the Prime Minister announcing a 75% wage subsidy, but every little bit goes some way. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at this point.
So, and you've been proactive from the beginning in terms of, I know you were one of the initial people that called for postponement of the cruise season. So what are some of the things that you've been doing personally to help support places like the Chamber of Commerce or Small Business BC? Has there been any kind of lobbying that you've been able to do, sort of a reverse effect, right? Normally you're lobbied, I'm sure, but for you to be able to lobby on behalf of small businesses in our community, what have you been able to do, if anything?
Absolutely. So as soon as the crisis really hit here, I called a meeting of the business leaders, so the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Victoria Business Association, some commercial property landlords, some retail tenants, some restaurant tenants, and a couple of big employers. So we've been meeting twice a week for the last couple of weeks, so I can hear directly from them. Thankfully, we have developed, both in the last term, but certainly in this new term of the federal government, we've developed very good relationships with the federal government, and in particular with the Deputy Minister of Finance and the Minister of Middle Class Prosperity, Mona Fortier. So she was out here 3 weeks ago. I convened a meeting for her. She met face-to-face with some of our business and community leaders. And so as Catherine from the Chamber of Commerce and Jeff from DVBA and Paul from Tourism Victoria have been sending their letters through official channels, I've been taking the PDF and texting them to Mona Forte and saying, here's what I'm hearing on the ground. So, you know, relationships, one of the things that we all know, but certainly through this crisis that I'm learning, is relationships are everything. And two of the things that the letter that I sent to her by text advocated for last week were a deeper wage subsidy and zero interest loans. So I like to think that our businesses here in the capital city are having a voice in Ottawa, and really so impressed with the work that the federal government's doing.
Yeah, I mean, it has been impressive, and I as a small business owner, I appreciate that, and I applaud you for doing that, because you know, you're absolutely right. It is relationship driven. My cousin-in-law is an MP from Northern Ontario, and he's been connecting with my partner Cindy, his assistant, by, you know, a direct email letting us know what's going on. And you know, I mean, it's all public knowledge, but we get, you know, the track directly to him. So he's somebody definitely that I'll be reaching out to. Have you thought about things like, and I'm well aware, and this is what I was trying to scratch my head, is as a municipality in Canada, what can you do? And considering we are a relatively small municipality, one of the things I thought about is, what about removing parking fees? I know you've been very proactive in getting Victorians to look at cycling as a healthier alternative, but what about actually removing parking fees on the weekends, maybe for a 6-month period?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that we're looking at. Parking is really complicated, and I'll tell you why. So every year, our parking revenues bring in about $8 million. And that $8 million goes to deliver city services, keeping the streets clean, picking up garbage, all of those kinds of things. So the $8 million that we collect in parking goes into general revenue to provide city services. So for every $1 million that we would lose in parking revenue, that's the equivalent of a 1% property tax hike. Or cutting services. So those are the kinds of things we're really balancing right now. I do think it is a fine balance, because for people who are out there who are still, providing the essential services, it would be great to give free parking for them at this point in time. So that's definitely that's one of the easy things that we could do, and staff are certainly looking at that as part of the look at every fiscal, legal, and legislative tool that we have. But the question is, what are the consequences of doing that? Or do we wait until we're in recovery mode and waive parking at that point to encourage people to come back downtown? So, $8 million obviously our parking revenues are already way down, and we don't know, I haven't seen the numbers yet. But do we make parking free now when the Prime Minister's saying stay at home? That would help the people who still have to work. Or do we make it free later when we want to stimulate a recovery? So these are all the difficult conversations we're having, and they're good questions you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, and I understand that. That was one thing that I was thinking of, free parking now for nobody visiting, kind of who cares? But when I'm thinking of friends of mine that own businesses, whether it be the Russian Tailor, Outlooks for Men, or when they've got parking right in front of their shop, and you're right, I think it does. From my perspective, I can't speak for them, but I would assume that they would prefer to have, the option of free parking once the economy is ramping back up and people are coming out and spending some more money.
Yeah, exactly. And so that, if I had to make the decision myself, and again, it's not my decision, it's a decision for council and for staff to make together. But I think the more appropriate time to offer free parking on a limited basis is when we're ready to scream, come out of your homes, social distancing is over, and it's time for recovery now. So we'll certainly look at those options.
Yeah, when the time comes, right? When the scientists and the doctors are telling us that it makes sense, and we can do that. Certainly, that does make sense.
Yeah.
One other thing that I did want to touch on is the homeless, because the BackBone is part of a broader network called the Tundra and Podcast Network, and we are working toward building a health podcast component, and I know that you've been very proactive to try and find a place and try and find a solution for the homeless, and people within our organization have been speaking with street nurses in Toronto, and that was one of their first concerns was COVID-19 just literally tearing through the homeless community. So what are some of the things that you've been doing, and then how do you see it as being a positive impact for small businesses, or even if there is any kind of correlation?
That's a great question. So this is a very serious concern, and I feel like we've got, and again, this is based on medical advice. I've never received so much medical advice as a policymaker in my life, which is it's great. So we've been relying heavily on obviously Dr. Bonnie Henry, who's the provincial medical health officer, but also Dr. Richard Stanwyck, who is the Island Health medical health officer. So again, as soon as the a couple of weeks ago, Our Place closed its doors, not entirely, and Our Place, for those who are watching and not from Victoria, is one of our essential service providers for the street-involved community. So they closed their doors to meals. They're still handing out meals. So anyways, that was a tipping point for me. Because that's a lot of people who have less shelter. The shelters have also had to lower their numbers because of social distancing. So we are seeing a crisis unfolding here in Victoria and on the streets across the country. So what we've done as of last Tuesday, so I guess a week and 2 days ago, I've been convening daily phone calls with BC Housing, Island Health, the Coalition to End Homelessness, City Bylaw, Dr. Stanwyck, and we're actively working on a plan to temporarily separate people and house them in parks, two parks in particular, while we work as quickly as possible to open up city facilities, community centers, open or vacant motels, to get people inside. You know, what really strikes me is how poorly we've done as a Canadian community in taking care of our most vulnerable. And you know, when the Prime Minister is telling everyone to stay at home and people are following those orders, it really is very visible about who is left on the street, who doesn't have a home. So we're working very hard on that. In terms of how it impacts business, I think it's a really good question. I think one of the things that this crisis illustrates for me is, well, I don't believe there's ever an us and them, but if there ever were an us and them, now's not the time for that. Because if we don't get control of the potential of COVID-19 spreading through the street community, the people who are on the street are going to be competing for the same hospital beds as everybody else, right? So that's one key way that it benefits everybody. And then in terms of business in particular, I think a lot of businesses downtown here have closed up, and if people are fed and sheltered and clothed and taken care of, there's less desperation out there, and therefore less potential for break-ins and those kinds of things. So it really is an ecosystem-based approach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of what I was assuming that was happening with moving the homeless into safe distance shelters that are being put up in the city parks. That does make a lot of sense. So one last question. What do you feel small business owners can do to help you out in your efforts to help either the homeless and help get through this COVID-19 thing? Is there anything that you could see that small business owners could do?
Well, it's amazing. You know, I'm so inspired already about how small business owners have stepped up. So we've got these twice a week phone calls, which I mentioned. One more thing I should point out, just in case people aren't aware of this, and I will answer your question, but I want to make sure that I get this information out. We have a business hub at City Hall, and City Hall is closed right now, just like many businesses, but our Biz Hub has tons of resources. So every federal program, every provincial program, all the information we have, where to connect, where to go. So for people who are watching, who are small business owners in Victoria or anywhere for that matter, because obviously the information is worthwhile sharing with everyone. So it's victoria.ca/biz resources, and everything that a small business needs to know through this crisis is on there. In terms of what small businesses are doing to help out, again, as I said, it's inspiring and tremendous. One of the programs I'm most excited about, which launched just yesterday, it's called Boxes of Hope. And this is one of those win-wins that benefits people who are hungry and small businesses, in particular the restaurant sector. So a number of restaurants have come together and said, how can we help and keep our staff employed? They've partnered with the Coalition to End Homelessness, which can issue charitable tax receipts for money donated for meals. So the way it works is people go to the coalition website, they donate money. That money goes to pay local restaurants to deliver meals to people who are currently unsheltered and moving into shelters.
That's a great program. I appreciate you letting us know about that. Thank you very much for your time. This has been really good. And I appreciate it that you're coming on at such an early stage for the BackBone, because we are looking to build something here.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to come back anytime, and I just want you to know and Victoria businesses to know that we're working as hard as we can around the clock. We know that you're the backbone of our community, and we want that back to be strong.
Thank you very much, Mayor Helps. I appreciate it. Take care and be healthy.
Bye.